Could this be the future of preventive medicine? Let's take a closer look with Elizabeth Holmes.
Elizabeth Holmes is the...
Elizabeth Holmes.
Elizabeth Holmes.
Elizabeth Holmes.
Elizabeth Holmes.
This is what happens when you work to change things, and first they think you're crazy, then they fight you, and then all of a sudden you change the world.
And Elizabeth has since been arrested and charged with criminal fraud.
A woman once hailed as a Silicon Valley visionary is facing federal fraud charges tonight,
as she faces a criminal trial.
Theranos founder Elizabeth Holmes has now officially been indicted on federal wire fraud charges.
This is the story of Elizabeth Holmes, a once astounding business entrepreneur. At her peak, she was worth over $5 billion and her company worth over $9 billion. This is the story of the woman who fooled everyone. Elizabeth Ann Holmes was born in Washington, D.C. on February 3rd, 1984. Her father, Christian Ramus Holmes IV, was vice president at Enron, and her mother worked as a congressional committee staffer. Holmes attended the St. John's School in Houston. Halfway through her school education, she began attending Stanford University's summer Mandarin program, showing her accelerated learning. In 2002, Holmes attended Stanford, where she studied chemical engineering. In March of 2004, she dropped out of Stanford School of Engineering. From there, she went on to be the founder of a company called Real Time Cures in California that was later renamed to its more well-known Theranos in 2003 at just 19. This was a mix of both therapy and diagnosis. To get Theranos, she said that it was her goal to democratize healthcare. Elizabeth Holmes promised that her company would be a massive game changer in the health industry. She promised that with the prick of a finger, her machines could identify a multitude of diseases and/or problems with a person from the small sample of blood. She described her fear of needles as a motivation for performing the blood test using only a small amount of blood. However, when this idea was pitched to doctors or other people in the medical field, they told her it was impossible. However, this did not deter Miss Holmes, who decided to seek investments from other people outside of the medical industry. Holmes was a massive fan of Steve Jobs and would often dress like him and copy any details of how Apple was ran, even hiring former Apple employees. This is where she gets her classic black turtleneck sweater. Whenever she would make public appearances, she would speak in a deep baritone voice. However, this has been widely disputed whether this was her real voice or not. Many people claim that she just uses this voice to sound more credible. By December of 2004, Miss Holmes had raised over $6 million to fund her firm. Elizabeth Holmes on her team at Theranos had many respectable and well-known names. This is partially the reason why no one questioned if her company was legitimate or not, and those who did would often be quickly shut down and quieted by Theranos and Elizabeth Holmes. However, one man, John Carreyrou of the Wall Street Journal, was suspicious enough to start a secret investigation, even going so far as to writing a book, Bad Blood: Secrets and Lies in a Silicon Valley Startup, to which she replied,
This is what happens when you work to change things, and first they think you're crazy, then they fight you, and then all of a sudden you change the world. And
however, he was right. None of her promises about her company were true. Her company was based off of lies and deception. The company was not only not able to create a viable working machine, they also deceived investors as well as partners and workers within her own company, even keeping secrets from regulators and governments, all to keep her dream of changing the world and being a billionaire alive. In 2015, she managed to be named the youngest and wealthiest self-made female billionaire by American Forbes. Elizabeth Holmes has been indicted on 11 to 12 counts of wire fraud. However, she has pled not guilty and still believes that she can be the hero and change the world with her visions. With the trial expected to take place in March of 2021, she could potentially face up to 20 years in prison, with the most recent updates being her lawyers are looking at the insanity plea for her.